7, Lions won this one 31-29. Everything was close. Also, the completion percentage, one of the highest completion percentage games in the Super Bowl era.
Yeah, for the two
Not
guys
that
combined.
many incompletions.
Correct.
Who needs the number 1 seed more?
Well, Brew, I think you'd agree the winner of this game for the conference is in the driver's seat. There's no question about it. They're in charge. They're running everything. It all goes through them. Like, there's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. And
That's not bad.
Unequivocally, the Lions need it more.
Oh, why?
Because there will be, the Vikings have been operating all year like, look at us. Not happy to be here. That's insulting. But they
in that neighborhood,
in the general vicinity. The Lions have literally been the 1 seed since that matchup. Since that Week 7 matchup, they have been the 1 seed after every single week of football. The Lions have been the 1 seed. They have been operating like this is what's going to happen.
This is our year.
And so there is almost a disappointment. For even up to 2 weeks ago, the Vikings were, because you can bet on this type of thing, like 9-1 to be the 1 seed. Because the Eagles had a better chance, and obviously the Lions had the best chance. So there will be a legitimate vibes or energy deflation for Detroit. But the other reason is this. I think right now, Minnesota is the more complete team, so Detroit needs the cleaner path and the time off. Minnesota, if we show you their numbers for the season, they are, one of the very best teams in the league. So scoring, not great, but good. Yards, great. Opponent scoring, great.
Yeah.
Great run defense. Excellent at takeaways. Excellent stopping third downs. And the Lions, and I know you tried to put a nice coat of paint on it yesterday, comparing it to the Chiefs' offensive struggles. But the Lions, at no point this season, and certainly not at the end of the year, were the Chiefs the worst offense in football. They just weren't explosive from scoring a bunch of points. But the offense for the Chiefs has been anywhere from middling to where it is right now, which is quite good. The Lions, on the other hand, over the last month, if this was their defensive numbers the past month, would be the worst defense in football.
They're not great.
And so I think, Brew, it's a no-brainer that Detroit needs the 1 seed more. If Detroit doesn't get the 1 seed, I'll tell you right now, I'll be picking them to lose in the wild card round. Because,
wild card round.
Yeah, I think
either the Rams or the Buccaneers.
Well, a Bucs team who beat them already.
The Falcons.
Well, let me revise it. If it's the Falcons, I'll be picking the Lions.
That's right.
But the Bucs beat them, and the Rams play them to overtime, and then in the playoffs last year it was a 1-point game. And it would be on the road as opposed to in their building.
You make some decent points, obviously, the defense. But look, the home field is not some great elixir for that defense either.
No.
And I don't think we know it's been that bad recently, but overall I don't think it's the worst defense in the league. I'm going the other way, though.
Wow.
I'm going with Minnesota for a few reasons. One, I do still, even with this defense, I thought Wildes made a good point yesterday, they're still winning games. I still think Detroit is the better team. But beyond that, Detroit, Nick, is undefeated on the road.
Yep.
Undefeated on the road, 8-0, and they beat Minnesota, Green Bay, Houston, and San Francisco, which is still a talented team, all on the road. And here's the thing. These are the last, I think, 10 teams that have gone undefeated on the road. Last one was the Chiefs in 2020. All but the Cowboys, of course. And then one of the Niners teams, everyone else reached the Super Bowl. They didn't necessarily win it, but they all reached the Super Bowl. All right, so I get you'd rather be at home always, but the fact when you are so good on the road, this speaks to you're just a superior team. And so I think that's a big thing.
I like this graphic a lot.
My biggest thing is this, though, Nick. My biggest thing is this. The Lions have a seasoned quarterback who has already played in a Super Bowl, has played in 9 playoff games, is 2-2 on the road in playoff games, has faced the great Bill Belichick in the playoffs, in the Super Bowl for that matter. Sam Darnold is making his first playoff start. So I think he needs to be at home for that playoff start. I shouldn't say need, but it would be better for him, much better if he's at home in comfortable confines.
Okay, so I see what you're saying.
So I just think that, I think Minnesota needs it more because Darnold, he could be seen on the road.
Oh, you're saying pumpkin mode again? I feel
I'm not saying pumpkin. I think he's out of that at least for this year.
Career playoff
but
start.
That's a big deal.
Question mark. It's and most guys don't have the first career playoff start. Jordan Love did. You know what I mean?
Purdy was great. Jordan Love was great.
I feel like he's so seasoned at this point. He's like, I've been through it.
Been through what? He ain't been through a playoff game.
I know, but it's a very odd circumstance to have your first playoff game be this deep in your career and have this kind of like winding
But Nick
road.
is right in that this whole year has kind of been like, wow, look at Sam Darnold. Like, no expectations. Wow, this is great. Now there's expectations on them in the playoffs.
Can we go back to Drew's
seed.
undefeated on the road graphic?
It's a good graphic.
So this is off the top of my head, but I would bet a lot of money that one reason I think this might not be as applicable here is I'm almost certain every single one of these teams, because they were undefeated on the road, had a 1 or 2 seed. Because, the Chiefs defeated.
That's a good point.
And so they had home field at least for their first playoff game. They got a bye. The Chiefs definitely did. That Chiefs team was 14-2. That Patriots team was 14-2. I don't remember the Cowboys, but I think that was the best Tony Romo team was 12-4. But the 07 Patriots obviously.
Undefeated.
So the point I'm making. This would be the Lions potentially being the 5 seed. You know what I mean? And being
But
on the road
I do think
throughout.
it speaks to something that you could go on the road all year and be undefeated. I hear what you're saying because those teams probably had home field advantage. But if you go undefeated on the road, that means something.
One thing to buttress your point about the Lions' expectation, and I have no proof of this. It's just something I picked up because I have my thumb on the pulse, finger on the pulse. I think that when Dan Campbell played everybody against the 49ers, it's like, we'll get our rest. Play hard this week. We keep the momentum into the Vikings game, and then we get a break.
That's what he's thinking.
I totally agree that's what he's thinking. I just don't think it's going to work out that way. I think it's that it's okay that we're playing this week because we're going to go beat Minnesota and get rested. And listen.
And if you all of a sudden have to play, I think it's kind of
correct. And you might be playing Saturday. Like there's going to be.
They wouldn't.
What do you mean they wouldn't?
No, you could.
I mean, everybody plays. They absolutely could.
I don't know. Sunday night to Saturday seems.
I mean, that happens all the time. We don't know what the schedule will be, but it'll be a couple games Saturday, 3 Sunday, 1 Monday. So somebody's going to be in a marquee Saturday.
But I also think that Campbell's just like, whatever comes our way, we're ready.
Yeah,
I think that's more. Of course, he's considered that. Yeah. But I also think he has to realize, look, if we're on the road, we're on the road.
Yeah,
we still can win.
Brew, do you think Lamar can steal the MVP if he has a tremendous performance?
He can. I don't think he will. I think a lot of the voters do want to give it to Josh. And I'm not mad about this. But I do think a lot of voters feel like, look, this is Josh's year. Sure, it could go either way, but he hasn't gotten one. Lamar's gotten 2. This is Josh's year. I don't think they'll really punish him for losing, for not playing this game. Now, correct me if I'm wrong, Nick. If he goes out there and takes a snap or maybe plays the first possession, throws for no yardage, his average yards per game goes down to what, like 219?
You're talking about Josh Allen?
Yeah, Josh Allen. I mean, his stats there's already just a huge gap between him and Lamar.
The yards per game stats
it's going to drop.
Not a big hit, a 4%.
It'll go from about 233, which isn't great already, to 219.
Yeah, so this may be a stupid question, but even if he hands the ball off,
doesn't matter. He played.
He played.
Once you play, it's a game.
Exactly right.
So now it's 17 games versus 16. And here's the other thing. Again, I will give Lamar a 25, which maybe you think is high, 25 to 30% chance of becoming the MVP with a great game, obviously. And here's why. This is a meaningful game. I get it since Cleveland's not playing anybody, but still, it's a meaningful game for the division title. And remember, Lamar is second all-time single-season passer rating. Aaron Rodgers has the record at 122.5. Lamar is 121.6. So what if he breaks that record? He had a 140-something passer rating last week. So let's say he breaks that record. You know, you can play a half if you're really efficient, have a couple touchdowns, no picks. You could break that. You could have a high passer rating and break that record. Secondly, Lamar only needs 45 yards passing to become the first player ever with 4,000 pass yards and 800 rush yards, which he already has.
Which, by the way, the only reason, and this isn't to neg Lamar, that exists is because amazingly Lamar's never thrown for 4,000.
Right.
You know what I mean? He's run for 800 plus
right.
a bunch of times. He's never had which is shocking actually, that he's never had a 4,000 yard passing season.
I don't think he's been that close. I think it was 3,600 maybe.
His first year was his highest, which was 3,600. But go ahead.
And then here's the last thing, he could end up being the first player ever with 40 or 4,000 passing yards, 40 passing touchdowns, and like fewer than four or fewer interceptions. My point is just, I get that these are sometimes kind of weird records. But still, he could become a lot of firsts. And what did we talk about Josh? Oh, the first to throw, have 6 touchdowns, 3 passing, 3 rushing, receiving, rushing, passing, all that. So I'm just saying there's
if it's open for Lamar, it should be open for the 2 quarterbacks in the game we just discussed. And it seems not to be.
Yep.
And I am not at all trying to downplay Lamar's season, but all of the record stuff, as far as the passing numbers, records, it really is, he is having an all-time year touchdown interception ratio.
Yes.
That's the start and the end of it. And people be like, well, what about passer rating? That is half of your passer rating. Passer rating is yards per attempt, completion percentage, and then touchdown percentage, interception percentage. So, 2 of those 4 categories, touchdown interception ratio. I don't look at, and again, people can say this is unfair. I don't look at this year from Lamar as one of the great passing seasons that we've seen. I look at that Mahomes, Rodgers, Breeze, Brady, all in the last decade have had years to me that I'm like, oh, that's better. Now
you can argue Burrow's better this year.
I wouldn't, but you certainly
as many
right. You could, and right. So that's kind of what I'm saying. And again, I'm not trying to take away from what Lamar's done. I just think the touchdown interception ratio number is so amazing, and he earned that. It is carrying so much of the weight of these historic stats because 3,950 yards passing through 16 games is nothing special historically at all.
Here's the thing, though. The rushing yardage, with Lamar, you take into consideration, and I think going forward, more quarterbacks, Jaden, maybe Caleb, these numbers will be big. The rushing, obviously Josh Allen.
And for Josh, this year the rushing is helping him, but in a different way, it's the touchdown.
And the other thing, Nick, and people have come to realize nowadays, passing yards is not, it used to be like, oh, he threw for 5,000 yards.
Empty calories.
Yeah, it's kind of empty calories. If you're on a bad team or if you're always behind. Geno was up there leading the league for a while in passing yards. I'm just saying, though, it's not like that is this definitive stat anymore like it used to be viewed.
Go ahead. Sorry.
The weird thing about this question is, and I don't know if we can put these numbers back up, Dust. It's odd that he already has the statistical W's. So it's kind of strange.
You talking about Lamar?
Yeah. We're actually fighting a narrative war, and I don't know what narrative he needs to grab. Derrick Henry's still on his team. I don't know what he has outside of the record, which he can't win 2 games. Maybe, and this sounds insane, but Josh had 6 touchdowns. Maybe if he had 7 touchdowns, he gets.
If he gets 50, outlandish, I don't think he'll even get an opportunity for that.
But he
might only play a half.
If you just see this graphic, if you've been,
it's not close
on a deserted island, and you say, hey, we're asking, can this guy steal MVP? It's like, I don't know if Josh can steal it.
No,
it's actually. We're talking about Lamar.
So let me respond to that though. Has that person on the deserted island, are they familiar with this award in the past?
They have. They just went to the deserted island in the fall.
Well then they might think Josh is winning it because they'd be like, 11 wins, you're not going to get it.
Maybe.
And again, I don't.
Probably 12.
And so, probably will be like 12, but it's 16-game season is what it had been. So this is the reason why I'm not I don't really have sympathy's the wrong word, but there's a lot of Ravens fans and some Ravens media that, I'm familiar with being in the media and being a fan of a team, so I'm not going to knock them for it, that are really playing tiny violins for how unfair it'll be if Lamar doesn't get it. And I would just say, man, Lamar's MVP last year is what set the table for Josh's this year. If we put the numbers...
I don't think that's the case, though.
Okay.
Because last year was completely different as far as the competition.
I agree.
Right?
I understand and I agree with you. But the point that I'm trying to make is it is very difficult to make the argument Josh is statistically underwhelming this year when you put him alongside Lamar last season. Lamar last season ran away with the award. 49 of the 50 first place votes were for Lamar, and you look at it and you're like, oh, so he had the same year Josh had this year.
No, but it's sort of it's almost like Finals MVP in the NBA. It's like
it's
it was
relative.
a statistical outlier.
Yeah, it's relative to what everybody else is doing.
No, but
who could you have given the award to last year other than Lamar?
I mean, you for a long time thought Purdy had a real case.
But then once he was terrible.
I thought Christian McCaffrey last year had an argument, just like Saquon had an argument this year.
Christian last year you didn't need.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that Dak statistically.
But then he was bad in big games, and they lost. They beat up tomato
they
cans.
still right. I mean, that was, and they beat Detroit. We don't have to relitigate the Cowboys last season, but the point that I would be making is what carried the day last year for Lamar was the team's record with what people thought was an underwhelming supporting cast, and what right now is carrying the day for Josh is the team's record with what people think is an underwhelming supporting cast. I'm fine if we want to truly revamp this award. If we want to say, hey, the Vikings might be 15-2. So pick amongst yourselves if it's because of Darnold or Justin Jefferson.
Well,
but one of them's got to be, involved in the discussions.
I buy that.
Right. And so if we want to truly, Saquon Barkley was the most, it is now out of his control, but was maybe going to break a 40-year-old record and, changed that team's vibes entirely, and that's what killed him last year. He should be involved. That's not how we've done it previously, and because of how we've done it previously, Josh is the favorite, even though Lamar has the better numbers.
Lamar's had I would say, a better year. Now, there's an argument for Josh with the less supporting cast.
So who's your vote right now? It's Josh, isn't it?
With the because of the history.
Yeah, okay.
And which I do think is important, the context of it all. But I do think Lamar's had a better year.
And I also think it would be weird if what happens this weekend is Josh, who is not playing because they have clinched the 2 seed, puts up 0 numbers, and Lamar, who is playing because right now they haven't clinched their division, pulls ahead of him. That would just be like it happened to Mahomes, in my opinion, 4 years ago when they were 14-1. He had, I think, 38 touchdowns, 6 picks, and sat in the final week. And then Rodgers won the award because that felt weird to me then as well.
Yeah,
and so I'm not.
If it's a light show, Minnesota and Detroit. It's like, look, we're better than both. We're
better than both those
Buffalo
teams.
would be like, well, are you? We beat you.
Yeah, but they would be 15-2. Thanks for watching. Subscribe here to get more from the show and to check out clips from other shows on FS1.